Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another video of mine. It is the 2026 World Cup draw after date, or as I kind of bungled it, the day after the 2026 FIFA World Cup draw. And this World Cup 2026 is famous because not only is it the first World Cup to have three host nations, that being Canada, US, and Mexico, it has expanded from 32 teams, which was the norm since 1998, to 48. So that means more teams from confederations that don't really get the love, like North America, Africa, and even Asia getting more teams in. And Europe, of course, too. But the fact of the matter is that 48 nations will descend on North America for the World Cup in 2026, that being from June to July. And hopefully everything goes according to plan, and hopefully nothing bad happens. You know what I mean? Nevertheless, we're going to take a look at all 12 groups and the paths. And there are some groups, there are 6 groups that don't have the full 4-team compilation. But I will tell you what the predictions and the thoughts are. Now, of course, I might do another one in April, obviously, because, you'll have all 48 teams set in stone. But anyhow, this is just the day after the draw feelings and stuff. All right, so pot A was Mexico. That's their home pot. They will have South Africa, South Korea, and one of the UEFA playoff teams. So UEFA did this thing in which the 12 teams that won the 12 qualification groups qualified for the World Cup directly. And then they set up a 16-team playoff. Or was it 16 teams that qualify first? I think it was 16 that qualified first. My fault. I said 12. 16. And then 16 runner-up teams move on to play in positioning to get into the World Cup. And this is one of the first ones. So we know Mexico, their great World Cup history is that, they actually had a low-key stat that I never knew. Between 1978 and 2018, they went to the knockout stages in every World Cup. I didn't even know that. Still, Mexico was not in the World Cup knockout stages in 2022, and then they put that stat out. First time since 78. I'm like, Mexico? Wow. Well, I know Germany's got to have that streak longer than that. Actually, no, Germany tanked in 2018. But yeah, Mexico had that streak. It's like, what? Nothing against Mexico and their soccer team. They're pretty good. Second is South Africa. They first went to the World Cup in 98, not 2010 when they hosted it. That wasn't the first time. 98 was the first time. Then in 2010, they hosted it. They actually faced Mexico in Group A. So that was big. That South Africa would take on Mexico. And I do believe South Africa actually came close against Mexico or beat them. I can't remember. I think they beat Mexico, but it was not enough to get to the World Cup knockout stages. And for the first time ever, a host nation did not get to the knockout stages. Number 3 is South Korea. They've had a great history and all that. They've had some great moments. 2002, of course, their best moment taking 4th. Of course, it's controversial what South Korea did that year because FIFA kind of gave them more of a helping hand than most nations. I mean, Korea should have lost to Italy in the round of 16 in the first knockout game. But Italy got a goal disallowed for stupid reasons. Spain even got burned by that in the quarterfinals against Korea. But anyhow, and then there's Path D. It will one of the countries, Denmark, Czechia, or Czech Republic, as some people call it, Republic of Ireland, not Northern Ireland, that's different, and North Macedonia. So as I look at this, I think the first country I think of that might make it is Denmark, because Kasper Schmeichel's been pretty good in net, and he's the son of Peter Schmeichel, who was a great Danish and Manchester United goalie. The Czech Republic, I don't really feel much. But Ireland, I'm not sure about. And North Macedonia, even though they got to Euro last time. I don't know. But I think Denmark is going to be the team. Mexico, I think, definitely will win this group. I think Korea will sneak into second place, and Denmark will take third ahead of South Africa. That's just my thoughts. All right, on to Pool B, and we have Canada, who drew B in the thing. So big win for Canada in a sense. Well, they were Group B now. So here's how things work out. Well, all three leaders, Mexico's leader, Canada's leader, and the U.S. leader, drew plots for A, B, and C because, of course, with multiple host nations, you're trying to see who will be in Group A, Group B, or Group C. So Canada drew Group B, and in my mind, Canada may have been bit the worst of the three co-nations, host nations. Um, they will be facing Qatar. No, sorry. They will be facing Path A winner first. Let's talk about that. And Path A for UEFA is either Italy, Wales, Bosnia, or Northern Ireland. This is going to be crazy for those people in the home nations. It's a group of four countries: Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, and Wales. That, you know, the British Empire, if you will. But yeah, so Wales and Northern Ireland are in the same thing. You got Bosnia, who had Eden Shekel be good, but of course he's retired. Northern Ireland, well, they haven't had much World Cup experience. Well, they did it in 58, 82, and 86. They had that magical run in 82, actually winning over Spain on the final day to ruin Yugoslavia's chances. Yeah, Northern Ireland hasn't been to the World Cup since 1986. Pat Jennings and Norman Whiteside were pretty good. Wales, well, they haven't. They went to the World Cup last time, breaking a slump that happened since 1958. You know, Gareth Bale's still around. I don't think he's completely in his prime still. I think he left it. But Italy is the team that a lot of people want to win this group, the 14 group, because of the fact that Italy has failed to make the World Cup the past two times, which is unusual because Italy, before their failure in 2018, never lost a chance to the World Cup since 58. So I think Italy's got this one. I hate to say it. Third is Qatar, the host of the last World Cup. Of course, controversial because why would Qatar host the World Cup? It's basically all about money, money, money. Anyhow, Qatar bombed out quickly in the World Cup. They had one or two goals in the first round last time. I think one. But Qatar, just like Canada, has never won a World Cup match. So that could be big. And then you got Switzerland. You know, very neutral country, as people say. Their defense basically lays out and all that. Maybe Switzerland will have the same stuff. Who knows? But anyway, when I look at it, it's as if Italy qualifies, I can't see Canada taking top two. I have a feeling Italy and Switzerland will take top two, and Canada will be dropped to third, and hope that they get enough points to get in. All right, and then in Group C, we don't have the United States. I thought the United States were in Group C, but nevertheless, we have our first group and of no playoff teams. So we know the four teams in Group C. That's set in stone. You have Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. Brazil, one of the greatest World Cup nations of all time, and all that. The only country to be in every World Cup since the start in 1930. A lot of people say Germany, but no, Germany was booted from 1950 because of Hitler. Anyway, Brazil, four-time champs? Yeah. No, five-time champs. Yeah. Five-time champs, you know, Pele, Zico, Ronaldo, Revellino. You know, great country, World Cup nations country. Morocco, the team that shocked a lot of people in 2022 by becoming the first African country, the first African country to make the semifinals ever. Ghana in 2010 were so close, but Morocco proved everyone wrong in 2022. Of course, if you remember 4 years ago, I was hoping Canada would beat Morocco, thinking that this would be the World Cup win. But no, Morocco proved me wrong. In fact, till the semifinals, no team had scored a goal on Morocco other than Canada. Well, Canada scored a meaningless goal in the third group stage game, but in the first two knockout stages, no one scored against Morocco in regulation. So that meant that Canada had the distinction of being the last team to score in Morocco for a while, to the semis. Haiti, a team, the country gets shat on for many reasons. The hurricanes and the floods, and basically the island nation getting destroyed by Mother Nature a lot. But yeah, Haiti shocked a lot of people by getting it to one of the North American spots. Technically, they have been to a World Cup. People forget that Haiti went to a World Cup, and that was 1974 when they did it. In fact, well, they lost all three games, but in fact, they actually shocked the world in 1974 when they played Italy. No, they didn't beat Italy, but Emmanuel Sanon scored a key goal over Dino Sof. The significance was Sof had not given up a goal in over 1,300 minutes of international football. That's the equivalent of close to 15 games, because they're 90-minute games. Close to 15 games without giving up a goal. That's inconceivable. Not even the best goalies in the world, like Kasper Schmeichel, could do that. And fourth and finally is Scotland, the team that has been crapped on a lot by yours truly. Not because, I'm an England fan and Scotland's our enemy. No, no. It's because Scotland, this will be the 9th time they're in the World Cup. The other 8 times, they never have gone into a group, a knockout game. Never. Never. They've had great chances in 74, but they lost on goal differential because they couldn't beat Zaire. More so than Brazil. Of course, well, Brazil and Scotland almost perpetually put in the same group. 1978, Scotland lost to Iran, lost to Peru, and tied Iran. That screwed them over, and they couldn't get through. 82, they lost on goal differential because they gave up 2 goals to New Zealand, whereas Brazil, their internal rivals, didn't give up any goals. 86, they had a chance to beat Uruguay, but Uruguay basically hacked Scotland so much that Scotland couldn't get in. 1990, they needed to put Brazil at bay to get into the next round. After all, they lost to Costa Rica, but then Brazil scored late in the 80th minute, and Scotland were KO'd. And 98, they lost to Brazil again. What is it with Brazil and Scotland? It's just funny. It just is. All right, on to Group D, the U.S.'s group. And I think the U.S. got a good draw. Mexico got a good draw. Canada, not so much. Anyway, they also will have to worry about a path champion. But anyhow, the United States are, of course, the big kahunas in North America for soccer and all that. Mexico, be damned. Well, on their mark. Anyhow, the Americans, their World Cup history was big. They went to the first ever World Cup in 1930, mostly because most nations couldn't because of how traveling to a different country, which was, Uruguay in 1930 was a whole lot different almost a century ago. Nevertheless, and of course, the start of the Great Depression, too. Anyway, 1950, the Americans qualified and shocked England 1-0. Lots of American writers and English writers thought it was 10-0 or 10-1. But it wasn't. It was 1-0. And then the Americans had a drought till 1990 when they beat Trinidad on the final day of the campaign and got into the World Cup in 1990. They had a shit performance, and then 94 they got the World Cup because of money, possibly, but it worked out. It was one of the best World Cups of all time, 1994. And the razzmatazz. The Americans actually shocked Colombia because of Andre Escobar's own goal. But people forget that was not the winning goal. The Americans scored a second goal and won 2-1. But yeah, the Americans went through the knockout stages, got knocked out by Brazil on the 4th of July. They went through 98, they had a shit performance. 2002, they shocked Portugal and got themselves to the knockout stages. Americans have been doing decently. 2010, Landon Donovan's last second goal to beat Algeria to put the Americans into the group stages, the knockout stages. They have Paraguay. And Paraguay is a good country. Was that Jose Luis Chilavert's team? Yeah. But yeah, Paraguay's been okay. Australia, the team that for years just couldn't buy a chance to get to the World Cup because they would be beaten in weird circumstances. A lot of people thought there was a witch doctor cursing Australia. from 1974 to 2006. Australia had a famous chance in '94 by beating Canada in an interconfederational playoff. Unfortunately, though, they would have had to face a South American team, and lo and behold, it was Argentina. 2006, they beat Uruguay at home on a penalty shootout to get to the World Cup, and they have been to the World Cup, I think, every time since. Well, and they're in the Asian Federation. The Oceania Confederation, you don't usually get in. But yeah, Australia went Asian, and it worked. And of course, now you got the fourth team, Pac C. Turkey, Slovakia, Kosovo, or Romania. So, Turkey, great country and all that. I got to give them props. 2002, they took third place. It was one of the most shocking victories of all time in the semifinals. I mean, they got to the semifinals somehow, lost to Brazil, but they beat South Korea 3-2 in the third place game thanks to Hakan Sukur's goal 11 seconds in, which is still the fastest World Cup goal ever. They're looking good. I have co-workers who are hoping Turkey does well. You got Slovakia. I know they're mostly a hockey nation, Pavel Dimitra notwithstanding. But the fact is that Slovakia is in. They actually have done well in the World Cup. They actually beat Italy in 2010. Kosovo, one of those newer countries and all that. And Romania, the team in '94 that shockingly got to the semifinals. George Hagi was a pretty good player. In Romania, I think they took third, didn't they? Or no, Sweden took third over Romania. But Romania got to the semifinals, which shocked a lot of people. No, where was it? I keep thinking because Bulgaria beat Germany. But I think that was to get to the quarterfinals, wasn't it? I don't know. But anyway, at 98, they decided to dye their hair blonde. Didn't really work. Anyway, so my thoughts on this group. Well, I didn't give my group C thoughts. I think Brazil's going to win. Morocco will take second. Scotland will beat Haiti and somehow get to the knockout stages. In Group D, I think it's definitely good. I say Turkey will sneak in because of their powerful play. I think the Americans will win. I think it's going to be a dogfight for second. Turkey, I think, might get second place and get the automatic spot in the knockout stages. I think Australia might pull a rabbit out of their hat and beat Paraguay. If it's not Turkey, then I don't think that. Yeah, I think the Americans have a fantastic group, and it's a dogfight for second. That's just my thoughts. Okay, time for Group B, and this is the Germany group. A lot of people say, well, this is basically Germany's to lose. And I believe it. Germany, four-time world champs and all that. A couple times as West Germany because of the whole Berlin Wall scenario. But anyway, yeah, Germany is my second team, technically, because, on my maternal side, I have German roots. I think Germany is a pretty good country. Beckenbauer, Müller, Klose, Oli Kahn. They have a great World Cup history. You got Carousel, who won a North American playoff. So Carousel's in. When you think Carousel, you don't think soccer. Obviously not. Technically, for me, when I think of Carousel, I think of Little League Baseball. That's right. That Carousel won a couple of Little League World Series and all that. I remember watching that on ABC. And then, of course, you got yourself like Andrew Jones, the son of Carousel. And I think a few players from Carousel, baseball players, play for the Netherlands in World Baseball Classic. You got Cote d'Ivoire, or in English, it's Ivory Coast. They've had some great moments. Dieter Drogba, greatest player around, Emmanuel Kone. But yeah, Ivory Coast has had a few good moments in the World Cup. And then you got Ecuador. I don't really know much about their World Cup history, but they're a decent country, I think. Personally, I think it's definitely Germany and Ivory Coast. Ecuador, well, Curacao is going to have a decent showing in their maiden voyage into the World Cup because this is the first of the 4 debutants officially in. So yeah, I think Curacao will have a chance, but don't be surprised if Ecuador takes third. All right, so we're doing Group F, and this is a decent match. This is the last of the 4 UEFA paths, I believe, right? Yeah. So first team in Group F, the team that top 8 is the Netherlands, or Holland, as I am prone to calling them. But yeah, the Dutch have had some great moments. 1974, Johan Cruyff and Team Orange, and I for total football, and they almost won the World Cup. They should have won the World Cup, but Germany beat them at their own game. The Dutch went to the 78 World Cup finals without Cruyff, who retired from international football for many reasons. But they went to the final, but they were screwed by the host country for the second time. That was Argentina. And in 2010, they went to the World Cup final, but lost to Spain, who finally got the monkey off their back. Well, the Netherlands hold the record for most World Cup finals appearances without a title, and that was 3. There have been a few countries that have had 2 World Cup losses without a title. Now, of course, a lot of teams say, oh, well, Germany or Brazil have lost multiple World Cup finals. They have, but they've won World Cups. You got Japan, who have been to every World Cup since 1998. It's amazing. Japan in 94 had a great chance to win at a qualification thing for Asia in Doha, but they botched it, letting South Korea get in ahead of them. So Japan, of course, tried better, and since 1998, they have been to every World Cup. Of course, I am a secret Japanophile, meaning I like things about Japan. Sumo wrestling, Gaki no Sugai Rende, Chiki, and all that. But yeah, Japan, they've been decent at the World Cup. Not really the greatest. 2018, they had a chance to make the quarterfinals, but they lost to Belgium, blowing a 2-0 lead. Gotta be worried about it. And Group 3. And I think the 4 paths for UEFA to qualify, I think Path B is the group of death, if you will. You got Ukraine, Poland, Albania, and Sweden. One of those 4 countries, only one of those countries will join the other 3 countries. Well, you got Tunisia, who have had a decent run, but not big in my mind. But anyway, yeah. You got Ukraine, fighting off that whole terror war thing that Russia has started still to this day. Like, frig. Shevchenko, 2006, remind me. You got Poland, who have had some great performances. 2 semifinal appearances in history, 74 and 82. George Lato. And, Poland is the ancestry of my sister-in-law, Marlene. Albania, they've been doing decently. They got screwed over, in my mind, in the 2016 Euros for qualifying for one of those third-place spots. Portugal got through on goal differential, but Albania won a game. Portugal tied all 3 games. Like, fuck. I feel for Albania. And then you got Sweden, who have done well. 94, they took 3rd place. They shocked a lot of people by getting to the semis in the first place. It was like, what the frig? But yeah, Sweden's done well. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, everyone knows about him. They've been pretty good at times. So, and remember, they knocked Italy out of the World Cup qualifications in 2018. So yeah, this is definitely the group of death when it comes to the playoff path. Whoever wins this, I think, has the inside track on 2nd place. No disrespect to Japan or Tunisia, but I think that whoever wins the path will win. For my money, I'm going to go with Poland, because I do have a little bit of connections. All right, on to Pool G. And you got Belgium being the big boys in this group. Belgium, perpetually always underrated, underachieving, or overrated, if you will. Choose your adjective wisely. But nevertheless, Belgium has had a few good spots. In the 80s, they had good goaltending in 90, and they got to the 3rd place game against France, but lost to them. 94, Prehum was pretty good in essence, although he couldn't stop the shot from Saudi Arabia's Saeed all the way in. But yeah, Belgium has had some great moments. 2018, everyone thought Belgium was going to get to the World Cup final because, how good they were, top 5 in the world. But no, they fell in the quarterfinals. Or no, sorry. They did get to the semis, but lost to, I believe, France. Yeah, they're internal rivals because France and Belgium are rivals and neighbors. Belgium then beat England in the 3rd place game, pissed me off, but, it figured. You got Egypt with Mo Salah. If he's healthy, Egypt's got a great chance to get to the World Cup knockout stages. You got Iran another Middle Eastern country in a sense, Arabian Middle Eastern country. Iran, the team that, 98, their famous moment against the United States when they played each other and, the countries were at war at each other, but no chicanery happened. 1978, they actually tied Scotland and ruined Scotland's chances to qualify for the knockout stages. And they got New Zealand, the best team in the Oceania spot by far, because obviously Australia is now in the Asian Federation. But yeah, New Zealand, 1982, they screwed Scotland. Yeah, they lost 5-2, but on goal differential, Scotland did not get into the World Cup next round. I said Brazil screwed them over when I talked about Scotland, but I was wrong. It was Russia or the Soviets. But yeah, New Zealand has had some great moments. They beat Italy in 2010, or they tied them. No, they tied them. But yeah, New Zealand did their job, and Belgium did their job too. I think this is definitely Belgium's group. It's gonna probably be a healthy Mo Salah will probably give Egypt that second wildcard knockout spot. Otherwise, I think it's gonna be too close to call for second place in my mind. All right, so it's on to Group H. This is the Spain group. Spain, great country. Between their European Cup win in 1964 and 2008, they basically were great countries, but they were the epitome of overrated / underachieving. Well, that despite Real Madrid and Barca hoping giving European League success pick up, and then 2010 they won Euro 08, and then 2010 World Cup they pushed their way through. They beat the Dutch. I don't know, very last minute goal by Iniesta. Spain famously fell in 2014 as the defending champs. That's basically the defending champions curse, if you will, but it might not ruin this time. Anyway, Spain has some good teams and has been to the quarterfinals consistently. Next up, you got Cabo Verde, or Cape Verde as it is in English. This is their first tournament. This is a maiden tournament for them, getting in one of the African things. I think at Nigeria's expense. I can't remember, but yeah, Cape Verde. That's a big one. In fact, they're the smallest country, I believe, by population and by landmass to make the World Cup, beating Iceland in the category. But yeah, Cape Verde, 130,000 people or something. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, if you look at Kitchener, like freaking Kitchener has more residents. Anyway, you got Saudi Arabia next up. They've had some marks. They've been basically blessed by Asian qualification things. 94, they shocked Belgium by winning on their final group stage game, getting to the next round. The pride of Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, but they got butt whipped 8-0 by Germany in 2002. They've been okay. And then you got Uruguay, one of the first World Cup champion in 1930. Uruguay hosted the tournament. They beat Argentina in the final. Only 13 countries. Was it 13 countries made it, or 16? I can't remember. But yeah, it was a long way to Tipperary, if you will. Uruguay didn't get to the World Cup till the second time till 1950, and they won the World Cup in their second appearance, in which they basically beat Brazil on the final day to ruin Brazil's chances to win the World Cup on home turf in 1950. It was said that Scafino, the second goal scorer, did something that only two people did in the Maracana Stadium, silenced them, and that would be Frank Sinatra and the Pope. When I look at it, and Uruguay is a good nation too. When I look at it, I think Spain and Uruguay, basically, it'll be a dogfight for first. And I think Saudi Arabia, no disrespect to Cape Verde fans, but I think Saudi Arabia will sneak into third place. It doesn't mean they're going to qualify, because only 8 of the 12 third place teams will qualify for the round of 32. But still, anything can happen. All right, now you got Group I, and this is one of the 2 playoff groups that will be decided by an intercontinental playoff format. So anyway, in Group I, you have France being the big cheese of the group. No disrespect to French cheese. But the fact of the matter is that France has had some great moments with the World Cup. 1958, even though they didn't win the World Cup, Jules Fontaine was just spectacular. 13 goals in one World Cup appearance. Just one. He was basically injury prone, and France couldn't make World Cups too often in that era. France got better in 1982. They looked like they were the team to beat in the World Cup. Unfortunately, they got beaten by, I can't remember who knocked them out, but yeah, they faltered. 86, they had a chance, but lost in the quarters. And, well, sorry, no, they took third in 86. What am I thinking? And then France famously in 1994 failed to make the World Cup playoffs, or the finals as they call it, because of the fact that they needed 1 point in their final two games against Israel and Bulgaria to qualify. Just a tie. They had a tie set in place both times against Israel and Bulgaria, but lost on last second goals. It was just like one of the worst qualifying stories ever. And I did a video on the 1993 qualification thing and how crazy madcap it was. Nevertheless, France then won the World Cup on home turf in 98, taking down Brazil, the mighty Brazil. But then in 2002, they faltered, not even winning, not even getting, what? That's it. Not even getting one game in the group stages. And they didn't even get, well, and that was just shocking. You know, France has had some great domestic teams and international teams. They got to the 2022 World Cup final, Mbappe and Griezmann around, hopefully still. And one of those teams that took out France in the 2002 World Cup group stages, that would be Senegal. Senegal in their maiden voyage in 2002, they shocked everyone. And I believe this is only the second time Senegal's been to the World Cup, I think. But anyway, yeah, 2002, Senegal got to the World Cup. They faced France in the first game of the tournament because, you know, France was the defending champ, so they got to play the first game. So they played Senegal. And Senegal won 1-0 on a goal by Papa Bouba Diop. Can't forget the late John Motson's goal. Bouba Diop is there! And Bouba Diop is there! And Senegal has the lead. After half hour of play, Papa Bouba Diop scores. And they actually went to the group stage, to the knockout stages, and they shocked Sweden on a golden goal. At the time, you know, if you scored a goal in extra time, that was it, game over, no chance for the other team. But yeah, Senegal did that, but they got ruined by Turkey on the golden goal. He who lives by the golden goal dies by the golden goal. Of course, that was abolished in 2004. So yeah, you got that. You got a PAF winner, an intercontinental PAF winner. They decided to have 6 teams from the confederations make an interconfederational playoff in Mexico to qualify. UEFA or Europe gets 0 spots. North America got 2 spots, and every other nation, continent got 1. So this pathway will have Iraq coming from the Asian Football Federation, Bolivia coming from South America, and Suriname coming from North America. Iraq did make the World Cup in 1986. That's when the Hussein regime was at its fucking worst. And anyhow, that was just big. Yeah, Iraq with Hussein and all them. But yeah, they made the World Cup. Bolivia's been to a few World Cups, but nothing really of note. And Suriname, this would be their first trip to the World Cup if they make it through the pathway. So anyhow, yeah. The only good thing I know about Suriname was in 1988 when that swimmer won gold at the Olympics in Korea. Other than that, I don't know. Looking at this, yeah, and Sportsnet said that this is the group of death. Because you got France, Senegal. Oh yeah, country number 4 is Norway. My apologies. I was talking about things, but yeah, Norway with Erling Haaland, who has been crushing it in Premier League with Man City, and finally Norway gets one in with him. You know, Norway's been decent. 94, they famously took out England in the qualification things. But yeah, Norway's been there, done that. Yeah, France, Senegal, and Norway. This could be the group of death. and whoever comes out of it. The pathway. Now, what they did for the pathway was that Iraq will face the winner of Bolivia or Suriname. So the two teams out of the six that have the best FIFA world ranking actually get a kind of a bye to a playoff game. So Bolivia will have to play Suriname, and the winner will face Iraq. And that team will join France, Senegal, and Norway in the World Cup. So anyhow, we have Group J. This is Argentina's group, and this is, of course, the World Cup champions from 2022. Argentina had some great moments and all that in the World Cup. 1978, they hosted the World Cup. Of course, they had that military junta and all that ruined a lot of people's perceptions of Argentina. They won the World Cup. They were basically throwing confetti every Argentina goal, and it was just weird to see the confetti on the field. But nevertheless, Argentina kind of got their way into the World Cup. Some say they bribed their way to the semifinals because Peru, who were a decent team and who had beaten Scotland, were drawn against Argentina in the second stage of groups. And as long as Peru did not give up more than 4 goals, Argentina was screwed, and Brazil would have went to the semifinals. But no, they didn't. Oh no, they would have went to the final, right? Yeah, they would have went to the final. But yeah, Brazil was screwed out of it by alleged cheating. Argentina got to the final against the Dutch. Maradona in 1986 wowed everyone. Of course, the hand of God goal, ruining England fans forever. But not to take away from his second goal, in which he weaved right through the England defenders like they were statues. That was a good goal, I must say. But yeah, they won in 86. Maradona in 1990, Argentina got to the final but fell to the Germans on a penalty. 94, Maradona thought he was back in form, but he failed a drug test and Argentina fell apart. They've had some decent teams and all that. They have had some bad results, but in 2022, Messi freaking finally got his whale, aka the World Cup. So good on him for winning it. And then you got Algeria. They famously qualified in 1982 and thought they were going to get to the knockout stages, but chicanery between the Germans and the Austrians, speak of the devil, of course, I'll be talking about them later, but yeah, because chicanery got Germany and Austria to the World Cup knockout stages, and Algeria's advance. So anyway, yeah, Algeria was pissed off and all that. That's their best moment. And of course, speaking of the devil, you got Austria. They've been to the World Cup several times, and although they've had some great moments, 1954 they were the wonder team and should have got to at least the World Cup finals, but they didn't. Well, actually, yeah, Hungary also too, but yeah, Austria. And you got the country of Jordan. No, not the country of Jordan Kappa, who, I must embarrass him, won a special award from the Ottawa Senators Organization because he works for the Senators Organization. So congratulations to him. And he's only 24 years old. I think he's got innovation. I think he's got things going for him. Nevertheless, his namesake is in the World Cup for the first time ever. They've had a few great chances, but yeah, everyone knows about that country of Jordan because of the biblical sense and all that. So that's that. Personally, I think it's going to be a dogfight for second behind Argentina. Argentina may have the World Cup winner's curse hanging over them, but I think Messi and group will triumph, possibly. I can probably think that Algeria and Jordan might sneak in to the World Cup stages. It's going to be too tight for second, I'll be honest with you. All right, so you got Group K in this list. And this is the other group that has the intercontinental path. So anyway, you got Portugal, the classic Group K because of their World Cup ranking and all that. They've done decently. 1966, they famously got to the semifinals thanks to Eusebio scoring 9 goals throughout the tournament. Unfortunately, though, Portugal could not save their butts. They lost in the semis, and then, to England of all countries, of course. Portugal and England have a rivalry. I have a rivalry with Portugal because, I know a lot of Portuguese people and all that. And for years, I'll get to the story later. But anyway, yeah, England took out Portugal. 1986, they went to the World Cup and did okay. And then they didn't get to a World Cup till 2002. they were top 10 in the world, but they freaking fell to the Americans on other teams. And then 2006, they did it. They beat the Dutch in what is called the Battle of Nuremberg, which is not a war thing from World War II. It was actually 16 yellow cards and 4 red cards drawn out. It was one of the most undisciplined matches, I think the most undisciplined matches in World Cup history. But yeah, that's what happened in 2006. They got to the quarterfinals against England, and I was hoping for England to beat Portugal, get to the semifinals, probably lose to France, but who else? But yeah, England and Portugal, the rivalry was steep. Of course, we all know about CR7's freaking wink that ruined Wayne Rooney. I think Rooney would have gotten a yellow card for his tackle, but then CR7 butted in and Rooney got red, which was worse because those two were teammates at Man United, my Premier League team. Anyway, yeah, I was so pissed off about Portugal and England that I had a giant hatred for Portugal, and I said the next time England and Portugal are in a tournament, either Euro or the World Cup, if England does better than Portugal, then I'll end the hatred. It took till 2018 for that to happen. CR7 did quite well. He's still using this World Cup, which is shocking at his age. He's close to my age. But yeah, Portugal's the class of Group K. And then you got the Intercontinental Path winner. That would be in fact, you have the Dominican Republic. Sorry, the Democratic Republic of Congo. You have Jamaica and New Caledonia, or basically the African playoff thing. You got North American team and you got an Oceania team. New Caledonia from Oceania. Well, not a lot of people know about that country. Anyway, Jamaica, they went to the 98 World Cup, the Reggae Boys. I think that's their only World Cup ever. But yeah, Jamaica could make something happen. But Jamaica will have to face New Caledonia in a match. And then the winner of that match will face DR Congo, or what they used to be called Zaire. Of course, they in 1974 made the World Cup, try to give African football some credibility and all that. Mobutu was their savior, if you will. But yeah, DR Congo, they got beaten by Scotland 2-0. And then they got blasted by Yugoslavia 9-0. And then basically Mobutu threatened their lives if they didn't do well against Brazil. They lost 3-0 to Brazil. But yeah, they got flogged, I believe. But yeah, they're Uzbekistan, one of the best Asian Cup winning sides around. Uzbekistan's got some good strikers and all that. They are the third team. This is their debutant. And if New Caledonia wins, we'll have two debutants in the same group. You got Colombia, great team in '94. They were pegged to win the World Cup. Unfortunately, though, we all know about the Andres Escobar own goal. But hey, they lost to Romania in the first game, and they were screwed. They won their third game, but it was not enough. Colombia was knocked out, and then Escobar basically was shot because of the cartel. In 2014, they famously beat Uruguay on a bicycle kick goal by James Rodriguez, which was one of the goal, not the goal of the tournament, and that's how they're remembered. Portugal should be able to win the group, although Colombia might give them trouble. I think it's going to be down to the wire. I think Jamaica will sneak in. I don't think DR Congo is going to win. I feel like Jamaica is going to pull one out of the hat because it is North America. So I think Jamaica and Uzbekistan will have a tight battle for third, but it's not a guaranteed spot in the knockout stages, but you never know. And then you got Group L. This group is filled with teams. This could also be a group of death if you can think about it. So Group L, the headliners are England, who have done quite well, getting to 2 straight Euro finals, but falling to Spain and Italy. Basically, Gareth Southgate's tactics of defending the lead wore thin on English fans, and he was booted. England, one of the best World Cup soccer nations around. Their stories are full of things. I did a video on that, but yeah, England 1950 were supposed to do well, but they fell to the Americans and couldn't make it out of the knockout stage to the knockout stages. 1958 they fell early, and then England had this kind of role of making quarterfinals and making knockout games. 1966 they hosted the World Cup and all that, Of course, they banished North Korea to Middlesbrough, but the fans of Middlesbrough embraced them, so that bit England in the butt. But nevertheless, England used their tactics to beat Argentina, weren't allowed to swap shirts after the game, and they were called, in Argentina, were called animals. That would play into other things later on. England would get to the World Cup final against West Germany, beat them 4-2 in extra time. And of course, Jeff Hurst with the hat trick, including his second goal that should not have been a goal. And that's coming from an England fan. But anyway, yeah, that's what happened. And then England in 1970 thought they were going to do well. They had a chance to make the quarterfinals. Or no, in essence, they made the quarterfinals because of the knockout stages. They had a chance to make the semifinals. They were up 2-0. They rested a couple of players, but it bit them in the butt as Germany scored 3 straight goals. 1978, they didn't, and 74, they didn't qualify. 82, they did decently. 86 was when they should have beaten Argentina in the quarterfinals, but fell. I mean, in the quarterfinals, but fell flat on their face because of the hand of God. And then 1990, they had a good run, got to the semifinals. All they needed to do was beat Deutschland, but they couldn't do that. And of course, Gaza's tears. 94, they missed the World Cup, missing because they couldn't beat Norway. 98, they fell to Argentina. Beckham with his petulant flick. That was red card worthy, trust me. 2002, Beckham won a redemption and all of that. And England fell to Brazil because David Seaman forgot to jump at Ronaldinho's ball. 2006, they fell to Portugal, as I said. Damn UCR7. 2010, they got to the knockout stages. They faced Germany in the first game and had a chance to tie the game at 2, but stupidly, they did not allow Frank Lampard's goal because that goal was clearly over the line. Sepp Blatter, I think, kind of did it to screw England because of the whole World Cup of 66. Bitch. Anyhow, 2014 sucked. 2018 got to the semifinals through one of the easiest paths around, but fell to Belgium for a third. In 2022, lost to France. All right, you got Croatia. You know, they're a good nation too. 98, they made their first appearance as an independent nation and shocked the world by winning third place. Davin Suker was just amazing. The checkerboard guys, 2018, they did even better. They got to the final. Of course, they knock out England in the World Cup. So this will be kind of a redemption if England could beat Croatia. You got Ghana, the Black Stars, as they call them. So it was 2010. They were primed to become the first African team to make the semifinals. They looked good. Asamoah Gyan looked good. And then, you know, Luis Suarez of Uruguay. I think Uruguay. Did I talk about Uruguay? Oh, yeah, I thought I talked about Uruguay. Yeah. But Uruguay, you know, the handball by Luis Suarez. Gyan had a chance to score on the penalty on the final kick to send Ghana to the semis, but he failed. And then they lost in the penalty shootout. So that was brutal. And you got Panama. Panama. It's kind of weird. England has to face Croatia, who in 2018 knocked them out of the World Cup. Knocked them out of the semifinals. They have Panama, and they have Panama, the team they faced in the knockout stages. So yeah, you have Panama and all that. They did decently in their first World Cup in 2018, but yeah, I think for sure England's got this one. I think this is too close to call. Honestly, if England slips up, I think Croatia will have it. But I think Ghana and Panama will definitely fight. But yeah, England might have the group of death. Who knows? And this is coming from an English fan. So anyway, those are your 12 groups, and hopefully more stuff will be done. And of course, I'll do a redo in April because, you know, we'll know those 6 playoff teams. Anyhow, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do.